Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Parents as Teachers is pleased to present Keep Me Safe, a training about baby safety and childproofing your home. Our presenter today is Sandy Glazer of Capital Area Healthy Start Coalition. Good afternoon, Sandy.
Thank you, Rebecca. I see people are still kind of popping on a little bit, so we're going to get started in just a minute. Just to tell you a little bit more about the Parents as Teachers program. It's one of our brand new programs, and it is from our coalition, and it is for families with infants from birth to age 3. It used to be called the Born to Learn program. So we work, our Rebecca and her team with Parents as Teachers. It's a home visiting program, and they work with new moms in making sure all their needs are being met, as well as providing education on development and just how to have your baby grow as healthy, intellectually, emotionally, and physically as possible. And it also has components that benefit all of the family unit. Whoever is in the house is the family unit. So if anybody has any questions or knows of anyone who would like to enroll in PAT, let Ms. Rebecca or myself know, and we can get you into services. Okay, let me get started on the baby safety training. Most of you know me. I am Sandy Glazer. I have been with the coalition here for 9.5 years. Prior to that, some of the many things I used to do is I used to be a certified CPR instructor. When I was teaching infant and child CPR, I always had a baby safety component because needing CPR is the last step. Anything that's preventable, we'd like to be able to prevent. So CPR, is last resort, and you don't need to know it as long as babies are healthy and children. So let me pull up my presentation. Okay, everyone can see that, correct? Okay. First thing I'm going to talk about is safe sleep. Safe sleep, we want babies to be safe. Babies need to sleep alone, on their backs, in a crib with a firm mattress and a fitting seat. Do not elevate any of the portions of the mattress unless your doctor, for some reason, tells you to, because I know there's a few doctors that do say that when babies are having some kind of respiratory problems. Other than that, do not do that on your own. Babies can slip and fall, and their necks get tucked in, and it makes it hard for them to breathe. You want to also make sure you place the crib away from any cords. The babies and toddlers, they start crawling and pulling up fairly soon. You want to make sure there's no blinds or window lamp cords or curtains that can fall around the baby's neck. One thing that I do want to share today also is, see the picture there? Does anybody see anything wrong with that picture? Well, as of yes, this is one example of what's called a baby lounger. As of just this week, the Boppy baby loungers have been recalled because babies are over 25 babies in the past 8 years have died using a Boppy lounger. This is a different kind of lounger. It's just a brand name called DockATock. We have seen babies that have suffocated in those as well. As you see, this baby here, a couple things going on with this. Because of the soft high sides, even though baby's placed on his or her back, babies move a lot. I mean, they can flip over, they roll over a lot. They may not be able to roll over from back to front, but they certainly can squirm and get around and get their heads into the side of the Boppy. Plus, The baby's got this nice, adorable little cuddle toy. Well, that is really not safe for baby because as baby squirms and moves, that also can get under baby's face and cause suffocation. So just reminding everyone, I know that all of you on this call have received information about safe sleep, but I just want to reiterate that's the best way to put babies on their backs to sleep. I also want to mention that some of the sleeping deaths that we've seen in the state of Florida have been caused by babies being left in car seats, and they're just kind of the car seats with the nice bumpers on them, and the babies are left in it in the house, and the seat is not reclined. So just keep in mind there's a lot of unsafe ways to sleep a baby that feels right, but it really might not be safe. If baby is awake, it's okay you should put baby on his or her tummy. Babies need to strengthen their necks. They need to be able to look around, and they need to be able to learn to crawl, lift their heads, but only when they're being supervised. When we're talking about safe baby, it used to just be talking about safe sleep. Now there's three other components to safe baby. Comforting a crying baby is really about, just don't let if you're angry, if you're upset, take yourself away from baby. It's okay if baby's crying for 10, 15 minutes. It's really okay as long as they are in a safe place. If you can find somebody else to take your baby when they're crying while you go to a quiet place and calm down, that's great. Babies can be frustrating. Some babies are criers, some babies aren't. It's just, you don't just even shaking baby just a little bit. Their brains are still developing, and that's not a safe thing to do. A new area that's being addressed is called distracted parenting. Anyone want to guess what that's all about? Just chime in.
Cell phones.
That's a perfect example. It's not just being on your cell phones, it's being on the computer, it's doing anything digitally, because while you're doing that, two things are happening. You're getting distracted. Sometimes it only takes a second for baby to get into something they shouldn't be in. The other thing is you're not bonding with your baby. So distracting parenting, cell phones is exactly what this is all about. And the last part is caregivers' baby safety. You should really be careful who you choose as a caregiver, and anything that you learn about and you know about comforting a crying baby, distracted parenting, all this applies to a caregiver as well. Car seat safety, again, use a rear-facing seat for infants. Do not use car seats if they've been in an accident. Make sure the recline of the car seat is what you need for your baby's age. Babies go into the back seat of cars if you have one. If you have a truck, then you're going without a second seat. Of course, there's nowhere else to put baby but in the front seat. So you want to make sure the car seat is installed safely. The harness straps are secure. I remember I have two children and they're 12 years apart in age. One time we were in the car and I said to my daughter, who's the oldest one, I said, is your brother strapped into the car seat correctly? Because we had two cars and she was helping get him in the car seat. And she says, yeah, he's in there fine. And I said, did you check the car seat to make sure it's strapped in? And she says, Mom, it's fine, like a 13-year-old would do, because she was about a 1 at that time. I get to driving and the whole car seat flips over. My son was safe, he was fine, but sometimes, especially if you're moving car seats from vehicles to vehicles, just a reminder to double check that not only is baby safe in the car seat's attached. Never leave baby unattended in a car. We're working, I know the whole state and the national agencies, some cars and the newer cars have alarms when babies are left in the car. Would be wonderful if our car seats and all cars had alarms. They don't at this point. The heat, of course, as we know, can get to babies. So that's just something else to be careful of. We're going to, I'm going to give some information at the end of the presentation on different places in Leon County that you can call to have a certified car seat technician check out if your car seat's installed properly. They go through a week of intensive trainings. I can't see if Miss Amelia's on this call, but if she is, I just want to give a shout out to her. Anyone who lives in Wakulla County, Miss Amelia went through the trainings, the recertifications, and she is a car seat technician. So anyone that lives in Wakulla County is invited to call the Healthy Start program there and ask to see if the very busy Miss Amelia would be available to help them install their car seats. Water safety is something that sadly, there's some information in here that it makes sense. You know, if you have a pool, you don't want your babies around a pool or in the bathtub. What we have learned through CPR training and some of the training I had to go through is a toddler or a child, their heads are heavy, right? They can tip over easily and they have a hard time righting themselves. A baby can drown in just 2 inches of water. It looks like that because their heads are small but heavy, their noses and their mouth are in the water. So see the pictures of the buckets I have? Even outside, you're watering your plants or you're doing something in your garden or you filled up a bucket. You want to make sure your child, once they get crawling and walking, cannot have access to that bucket. When toddlers, that's one of toddlers, unfortunately, favorite playthings for all of you who have children. I can speak for my own and I can speak for all the people I worked with. There's a fascination to the toilets. You can get locks with toilets. Yes, they are a little cumbersome to unlock every time you use it, but it keeps your baby safe. You can shut the door to the bathrooms because babies love it. It not only keeps babies from drowning, it keeps your toilet from clogging up and having to call a plumber when your child plops their favorite toy into your toilet and it gets stuck. So some more water safety is trying to keep the water temperature in your home to 120 degrees or less. So if the child turns on just the hot water, that's enough to scald them. But it should not be enough that it would cause 3rd-degree burns or anything that would cause their heart to stop. The best way to test baby's water is with your wrist or elbow while it's dry, because if it's wet, you'll get a little bit of a different reading in the water. Then the next thing that I'm going to talk about regarding baby safety is choking and strangulation prevention. I know these are all difficult topics, but these are some of the things that we can do ahead of time to prevent our toddlers and our babies from choking. It's impossible to remove every small item everywhere. Things fall on the ground, do the best you can, but that's why it's important to try and keep your eyes on your baby, your crawling baby, your walking baby, your toddler baby, because you never know what they're going to plop into their mouths. My son, who wasn't a very good eater, he didn't like very many foods yet. When he was starting to crawl, he could get around. My daughter could get around too without crawling, just by rolling over. Anyway, my son, who really didn't like foods, I'm sitting in the living room and I see his little mouth going up and down. It's like, what has he popped into his mouth? So as moms, we open up their mouths. We don't want to just stick our fingers in because you could push something further down, right? So I do not recommend, if you think something's in your child's mouth, you start digging around, you want to look first. So I open up his little mouth and what do I see? Half the body of a dead cockroach. Yeah, gross. So I'm for a second, I'm freaking out because I'm thinking, who's going to make him sick? It did not. But then my second thought was, after I get it out of his mouth, I didn't see him put it into his mouth. I didn't see it lying on our carpet, and how he did not start chewing on it and go ick and spit it out, right? Like he does with food. So you want to be very careful with what you see your babies putting into their mouths. Read warnings on products. Children under age 5 should not eat small candies. They can choke on them. Also, here's something I always put into my training, because sadly I saw this happen when I worked in a grocery store. You know how hot dogs are pre-cooked, right? They're pre-cooked. It's okay if you eat them raw. They don't have to be heated up. You never, ever, ever want to give a walking child or even a non-walking child a hot dog full size to eat, because they're going to hold it like this. They're slippery. All they have to do is just move a little wrong and it goes down their esophagus and they cannot cough it out. I worked at a grocery store many years ago, and sadly I saw a 4-year-old choke. We had to call an ambulance and it was too late. It was horrible. It was horrible. So that's why I add that in my presentation, because it's things you don't think about, right? But once you hear or read something on the internet, it becomes more real when you see it or hear from it. I cannot stress enough to take an infant and child CPR class, because not only does it teach you what to do if a child's heart stops beating, it also teaches you what to do if a child's choking. If you have older children, it makes it a little difficult, because the older children, they have toys with little bitty pieces. And even if they're saying to their younger siblings, don't touch, leave me alone. Don't want to play with you. I've got my friends over. The little babies and the toddlers will still grab things. So you want to just be careful what they pop into their mouths. So I'm going to say it one more time, all you new parents. I know you have a million things to do. Your life is busy, your life is complicated, but I strongly encourage you to take an infant and child CPR class. We do have them through our coalition. We had some classes in the first part of this year. We hope to start having free infant and child CPR classes coming up in the fall. So keep in touch with us and we'll let you know when they are. If you are interested in taking a child CPR class, get with me afterwards, and I can tell you the ones that are in the community that are not free, but are available. Any questions? Comments? And okay, and Jessica, thank you for speaking up and bringing your baby. It's making my presentation very enjoyable. I can only see 4 of you, and you're the one I get to see. So here we have a beautiful baby here, and we may have more.
She'll be 8 months tomorrow, and she is crawling and active. So I definitely try to keep things out of her way.
And it's hard, right? You try your best, but it's hard. Is she your first baby?
No, and I'm like you, Sandy. So I have a 13-year age gap between her and my son. So yeah.
Well, thank you for adding that. The next thing we're going to talk about is poison prevention. We all know to keep medications out of the reach of our children. All of us lock up. That's the first thing all the new moms and dads and caregivers learn is you take your cleaning stuff, you put a lock on the door, you move them up high, you put your medicine somewhere where a toddler, once they start climbing, they cannot reach, they cannot get to. Child safety caps are good. They don't always work. They don't always go on well. So that's something that all parents just know about, right? Well, I went to a training a couple weeks ago, and I love learning new things. And I learned something new out there that I had never heard of. Some of you may know that the medical marijuana, which is legal, they put the marijuana, the THC is the active part of marijuana. And the THC is put into chewables, which can be, from my understanding, brownies and cookies, but also gummies, gummy bears, gummy anything. That I had known about. And it's considered a medication, keep it out of the reach of children. Well, what I found was There's something new called omega-8, omega-10. Anyone ever heard of that?
Delta 8.
Delta, not omega then, delta. Thank you. I'm thinking omega. It's delta 8 and delta 10. Okay. Do you know what, does anyone want to tell me what it is?
I think it's like a THC derivative.
I think it's like I think the low THC alternative to marijuana, something like that. Simone's on track.
Like synthetic marijuana.
Yeah.
Well, according to this presentation, and you all may know more than me because I had never heard of it, it was described as a synthetic marijuana. It does not come from the hemp plant, which in itself makes it more dangerous because it's made in the lab. You never know what's in it, just like all herbals, you don't know what's in it. It is sold, there's a package they sell it in that says medicated Skittles. Literally says medicated Skittles. Skittles approve this. The only difference in the look of the medication that has the man-made THC in it is that when you buy it, it says medicated instead of regular Skittles, and it costs like $20 instead of $2.59. But all these at this point, the Delta 8 is legal, the Delta 10 is legal. And the problem with it is it's legal, right? But it looks like candy. And even adults that legally use it and some non-adults, it does not say what a safe dosage. So on this poison control number, they have gotten hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of calls of children who have eaten too many medicated gummies and Skittles and other things. So that's something else you want to be very careful with. If you have older teens or even 13-year-olds, you may want to look and see what their Skittles look like. These are being sold in convenience stores. They're being sold in the internet. At this point, they're not illegal. Another thing I learned from poison control, the person who presented it was a supervisor from the Jacksonville Poison Control Center. Memorize this number, 1-800-222-1222, 222-1222. Put it into your phone, put it anywhere caregivers are, because when you call that number, you will get 24/7 a live person. And the persons who answer the phone are either pharmacists, doctors, or nurses with a background in pharmacology. It's not like calling 911 where somebody may say, how can I direct your call? What's your emergency? You get to speak to somebody who can tell you immediately what you need to do. If you have a dire emergency and you don't want to call this number, you want to call 911, call 911. Wait, and they will get there. My suggestion is while you are calling 911, if you have two phones, also call 1-800-222-1222 because they can talk you through some of the things. Lastly, in certain parts of Florida, and he was not sure which parts, if you call 1-800-222-1212, they can dispatch somebody to your home should adults or children ingest something that needs an antidote, something they can give you to counterbalance the effects of the poison. They will come out to your house and you don't even need to go to the emergency room. So lots of poison prevention. Most of this is, of course, about prevention, but I also want to give some information of what to do if anything does happen. Just keep everything away from your toddlers. I hate sharing bad stories, but I really think that sometimes they're effective. When I was teaching CPR, this was not in Florida, it was in another state. Antifreeze is extremely, that you put in your car. It's colorful. A 2-year-old child, she had just stuck her fingers in the antifreeze, licked her fingers, stuck it back, licked her fingers, and she died. So you want to just not assume anything is safe. Toothpaste isn't something to worry about, but you just want to be very careful that your toddler, you get a pea-size toothpaste on a toothbrush. It's not going to hurt your baby. But if your baby sits there and eats a whole tube of toothpaste, I wouldn't necessarily be concerned, but I would call poison control. Anything anybody would like to add, or anything that they would like to share? Well, this kind of goes along with poison control, but this is about food poisoning. Some of the things that overlap, one of the things that overlaps with both poison control as food poisoning is, some of us were taught old school that you should keep what's called syrup of ipecac in your house. And if you think that your child or adult or baby has eaten something that's poison, the ipecac, for those of you who don't know what it is, it's something you drink that makes you vomit. I know that that's what I was taught many years ago. That was my mother was taught that we should give that. Now, I don't even know, it's still available to buy, but do not ever, ever give it to any children or adults who have ingested something, because sometimes just the act of vomiting, what if it was chemicals the person ate, and it comes back up and it can destroy the child's esophagus. Also, vomiting doesn't get rid of everything. It just sometimes poisons your esophagus and the pathway it comes back out. So do not ever induce vomiting unless you've called poison control. 1-800-222-1222, and they tell you to. So food poisoning sometimes looks just like the flu, looks like a cold. These food poisoning symptoms are upset stomach cramps, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and even fever. So sometimes it's hard to tell. It can come on anywhere from a few minutes of eating something, or it can even come 2-3 days later, depending on what the bacteria was in the food. It can even come on longer than that. So sometimes it's very hard to tell if a child has food poisoning or the flu. So it's not a bad idea to take them to the pediatrician. If you believe that it's food poisoning, but the doctor says your baby's doing well, your child's doing well, the most important thing to do is hydration. Lots of liquids. It just flushes all the bacteria and the poison out of the child and the adult systems. To avoid some kind of food contaminations, try to keep your refrigerator at 40 degrees or cooler. Cook food to the right internal temperatures before eating. Raw eggs are never a good idea. Wash hands when you're working with, say, raw eggs, raw meats. You want to wash your hands before you touch any other food. Rinse off all your fruits and vegetables. Best way to thaw frozen food is to let them thaw slower in the refrigerator. Leaving them out on the kitchen counter can attract bacteria. Now, if the symptoms of your child or anybody who might have food poisoning worsen, some of the symptoms you'll see is it just doesn't go away. Bloody stools. Sleeping too much is not a good sign if you've had food poisoning. It's actually a bad sign. So if your child's sleeping more than usual, most people's first thought is, oh, good, they're going to sleep away the flu, sleep away the bacteria. Sometimes bacteria can cause sleepiness. So you want to watch sleeping. Any kind of high fevers, of course, or any kind of confusion. If your child's old enough to talk and just doesn't seem to be responding, those are all reasons to call 911 and get to the emergency room. Any questions about that? Anything anybody would like to add? Any stories they would like to share? when we're talking about prevention and baby safety, accidental and unintentional injuries account for 40% of the child deaths in the United States under the age of 12. 40% more than any other cause. And that's huge. That's 40% of all child deaths could be preventable. Some of the things about prevention for toddlers and infants. You see this picture here I have of using gates and stairways, gates and rooms that children should not get into or it can be harmful to them. Yes, we recommend using gates. We also, how many of you have seen these YouTube videos that are posted as being cute? I say cute with quotations. And we're watching little escape artists who can get out of their beds, they can get over gates, they close them back up. Have we all seen those? So we know the gates aren't the end all being all, but doesn't mean you shouldn't use them. Use the gates as best you can to keep babies safe, but of course you still want to watch your toddlers. Anyone that the install window guards, it's not really talked about much in places there's only 1 or 2 stories. But for example, in New York City, most of the high-rise buildings do not even have screens on the windows. Bugs don't get up that high. So in New York, in the high-rise cities, I'm only talking about New York because I've been there, so I have a frame of reference. All the bigger cities with high-rise buildings, that anyone with children put in what's called window guards. You can get these on the internet, or they're harder to find locally. Well, what it is if you don't have screens, or you have screens that can be pushed out of windows, you want to get something on your window guard. If you have the windows that open up big enough for a child to fall out of, you may want to check into getting different kind of window guards that keep your child from falling out. There's all kinds of little rubber and plastic things you can get to put on sharp furniture. You have a new baby, you love your furniture, but some of it has sharp corners. No, you don't have to go back to IKEA and reshop. You can get gadgets that go on the sharp corners of your furniture. So when your babies are learning how to stand, learning how to walk, and they fall, babies are going to hit their heads. They're just going to. You don't want to hover over them. So you just want to make sure if they fall, they're not going to hurt themselves with any sharp furniture items. Covers for electrical sockets. I know we give them out in some of our programs that our coalition sponsors. They're cheap. Strongly advise putting them into all your sockets. For some reason around age 2 to 3, it's a detraction for children to start sticking things inside of things. Well, no, their fingers aren't going to fit into those sockets, but maybe the fork they're carrying will. So we want to just protect children from shocks. Secure your furniture. Most children can climb up on anything. If you have carpets, your furniture gets a little tippy. You want to make sure if you have test all your furniture if you have carpets. Even if you don't, kind of just see how far you can pull them down. Try to shake them a little bit just in case your toddler climbs on them. And if you see that it can tip over, look into getting some kind of brackets to strap them to your walls. Something else a lot of people don't necessarily think about, because it's fairly new, is when you mount your TVs on the wall, make sure they're mounted well. If you have your big, huge, lovely, fat, flat screen TV lower down, make sure that it's someplace your child cannot pull it over on themselves. Something low and stable. So if the TV does pull over, it's more likely to fall on the ground than if it's up higher and the baby pulls the TV over and it falls on them. Next thing to talk about, and keep in mind, this is Safe Baby 101. I'm not going to go into any of the science of anything, is burn prevention. When people think of burns, what do you think of as some of the major causes of burns? Anyone?
Hot water?
Hot water? Absolutely.
What about stoves? I know I put my hand on the burner as a child.
Ow. Absolutely. Sunburn. Something that also goes under this category is chemical burns. Some of the drain cleaners.
Space heaters too.
Absolutely. Space heaters is a great one.
Mhm.
So what you want to do is look around your house and you may see something you never thought about before that could cause burns, whether it's chemical or from heat. The most common burn for children under the age 5 that requires hospitalization is from food and drink and hot water. So it's just something to keep in mind, especially when you're microwaving food, whether it's liquid or regular food. When we talk about microwaves, all you new parents, I've been there, done that. We're all told when we're giving our babies their bottles, whether the bottles have pumped formula that you're trying to defrost or warm up, or they have regular over-the-counter man-made formula. A lot of moms are putting that we tell moms is to heat it up just using some hot running water. But what's faster, right? Microwaves, right? The danger of using the microwaves is we test the baby's bottles by most of us squirting out the liquid onto part of our hand where it's sensitive. Make sure you shake that bottle well, because in a microwave, some of the hot spots stay in the middle and you could be turning the bottle over. You got that formula or breast milk on your hand. It feels fine. Baby starts drinking and it gets to a hot spot and it can cause harm to esophagus. So just use the microwave. I can't say do or do not, but should you use the microwave to heat up formula or breast milk, make sure you shake it up well and test it. Actually, most babies will drink any kind of liquid at room temperature. So you also don't, if you can feel the temperature of the formula on your hand, it might be a little too hot. We're average is what, 98.6 degrees body temperature. Most of our houses are not that hot. So if you can feel that formula or food, even for that matter, on the back of your hand, it's hotter than 98.6 degrees, and it's really hotter than a baby needs to be drinking. Somebody had mentioned they burn themselves as a child on the stove. If at all possible, try to use the back burners that the toddlers can't reach to put their hands on. I know that's not always feasible. Make sure you turn the pot handles inward, because if the pot handles are outward, there's a higher chance that a toddler can hit that and knock down a pot of boiling water on themselves or anyone around. As far as sun, we all know to use sunscreen. You want to have a fire escape plan in place. And if you have toddlers and children who don't understand what the plan is, your plan should include who is the one who is going to rescue that child. Because you don't want, let's say you live in a house of 6 people, and everyone is worried about that baby who cannot save themselves. You want to designate who that person will be, so everyone else has a different job and that person can safely get that baby out, whereas everyone else has a different job of how to escape and be safe and in that house. When we're talking about burns, there's all these things again that has passed down to us through generations, through word of mouth, of what to do if there's a burn. Some of the things you should not do. You should not apply ice to burns, because if the burn is deep enough to go through a layer of skin, it will rip that layer of skin off. It is okay to run, if you know that it's a burn from something hot, not a chemical, it is okay to run cool water on a burn, but do not use ice. Do not use ointments. Do not, if the burn is making clothing stick to that child or adult, do not remove that clothing. Wait till help arrives. After you call 911, wait till help arrives. If the burn has caused blisters, do not pull at the blisters. You do want to watch blisters to make sure they do not become infected. Whenever in doubt, of course, ask your pediatrician. Ask, not, you can call 911 if it's an emergency, and ask your trusted healthcare providers. Any questions about anything I've gone over today? Okay, before I show you the next two slides, which are basically, they're just reference sources to get up, so you can be up to date on any recalls that happen, up to date on the latest treatments for burns, for injury prevention, for chemical burns. I'm going to give you some references, but I also want to let you know, whether you're a parent, whether you're a caregiver, whether you're a professional who works with parents or caregivers, you're welcome to use any of the information that I'm giving you. It's this presentation is going to be recorded. So if there's anyone you want to share this with, whether it's giving them handouts or having them watch the presentation, it's not copyrighted. It would be great if you shared and added anything you wanted to into your trainings. Any questions? Here's my first page of references, safekids.org. Baby, it has tons and tons of information on how to, we don't want to say baby proof your house. Houses are never, that's an impossibility. But you want to make your house as safe as possible for babies. And it gives a lot of tips that'll help you. If you look at that, it'll show you things that you may say, I never thought of that. So you may want to look at that website. What I especially want to point out is whenever there's a product recall, just like the Boppy loungers, you will be able to find that on this website. The second reference is the CDC periodically updates their website on infant safety. The AAP, which is the American Academy of Pediatrics, they update their safe sleep information because sometimes that changes a little bit. The poison control, there's two poison control websites. One is Poison.org is national. You're welcome to use that. And then the Florida Poison Control is the one that is local here in Florida. If you wanted to get more information about who answers the 222-1222 number locally, you can go on to that website. And also there's a lot of wonderful handouts there that you can use for free and download into PDF and use it for yourselves or your clients or your friends or your neighbors. USFA FEMA has a lot of information on burn prevention and how to treat burns, what to do, what not to do. They also have information about how to recognize the difference between a first degree, second degree, third degree, and now they have something called fourth degree burns, and how the treatment is all different. And they have also information based on age, because we know babies have thinner skins. They're just developing. Older people have thinner skins. We're kind of done developing, but our skin thins out. So burn treatment is a little different. And then all the ages in between. The CDC site on food poisoning gives more information on how to possibly recognize food poisoning versus a virus or other things. But I still recommend that you contact your doctor or pediatrician either way, you may want to get treatment. The Prevent Child Injury org has free toolkits online, lots of information for your own use, lots of information for handouts, all free. And lastly, I promised you I'd be giving you some information where to get your baby's car seats checked out. Last I contacted these two agencies here in Leon County, that was the times they were doing the car seat checks. It changes constantly depending on who's on staff. When I called, it was probably about a month and a half ago, Leon EMS, if you call that number, you'll get somebody that can give you information. When I called, they were doing appointments only, and they wanted the appointments to be made in the mornings. You can get car seats checked without babies. You can get car seats checks before babies are born. You can get car seat checks with babies in them. You can get toddler seat checks. You can get older children car seats checked as well. The Tallahassee Police Department only had one person at the time who was doing car seats, who was certified, and they were doing the car seat checks from Wednesday from 9 to 11 by appointment only. They told me that that person is not always available, so you do definitely want to call first and see if that person's available so you can make an appointment. They also said occasionally if you're not available, a Wednesday 9 to 11, they may be able to get appointments at different times. And that is all that I have for today. So I'm going to ask you again, any questions or anything at all that I can help you with related to burn prevention or any of our programs.
No question, but thank you so much for this presentation, Sandy. Fantastic job.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sandy, for this very useful and possibly life-saving presentation. Thanks again.
Awesome job. I'll be sending this information with Team Dad, so they'll be able to go over this. This will be one of the information that I'll be able to give out to all the dads in the program, especially having one dad that came in the program and his infant died of SIDS. So this hit home. So thank you again.
Well, thank you, everybody, and please feel free to share. And like Kenyatta was saying, I'm absolutely share. And if anybody would like me to do a presentation for them on this topic, for any group, let me know as well. Well, thank you so much, and thank you for spending your last hour with us, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.